all
Great.
set, Lisa.
Thank you. I'm hopefully unmuted, and if I'm not, give me a heads up. Thank you for having me. So the first thing I suggest is just getting a pen and paper. I've been sitting here and taking notes. I do that a lot. So, that's why we in school we're forced to take notes. It helps you kind of remember something. So if there's something you want to take away this evening and maybe think about shifting into or researching or reading or whatever, or implementing, you just write it down. So that's awesome, especially if you have questions. So thank you so much, Selden Library, for having me here. My name is Lisa Zimmerman, and I'm a certified health coach, a personal trainer, and a yoga and meditation instructor. I've been doing this for about 17 years. I have a practice, and I also work with a primary care physician. And I also teach a lifestyle medicine selective with fourth-year medical students at Stony Brook. It's in the preventative medicine department, and we're just trying to get more physicians to be able to create a lifestyle medicine practice where they can really focus on the pillars of really what that means. And one of them is what we're talking about tonight, which is just healthy eating. So we are going to talk about healthy eating and how that really, what you can do to address it and how it can impact your life. So I am going to pull up a second. Host disabled participant from screen sharing. So we will fix that in 1 second. So I can pull, all right. So yeah, we just need to make it so that I can share my screen. I think that makes me the host. We will find out in a moment. But while we're figuring that out, so what is lifestyle and what is lifestyle change? So it's the pillars of the American College on Lifestyle Medicine, which is a real group, a real organization. And we look at what those pillars are. So those pillars are restorative sleep, real sleep, not the I slept 5 hours and I don't feel restored, but I got really good, deep restorative sleep. Plant-based eating. That term is thrown around, and I have a whole other lecture that I give based on what plant-based eating is. Avoiding risky substances, vaping, way too much alcohol, etc. Movement. And movement for everybody's different. So for some people, movement is, you know what, I am going to do karate 5 days a week and that makes me happy, or I'm going to take yoga or Pilates. So movement is different. And then stress reduction. So for some people, stress reduction is taking a bath. For some people, it's drilling something and making something. For other people, there is they want to build a cabinet, and for some people it's getting their nails done, whatever. And then positive social connections. I mean, that's something that we really, really have realized is important, especially from the pandemic when we all had to kind of do shelter in lockdown. And we really realized that positive social connections are important. So I don't know if we've fixed yep, we did fix the problem. So good, awesome. So those are the pillars of what I mean when I say lifestyle. And I may bring this up throughout the talk. So I hope that that's okay, that now that I lectured you, that you got a little bit of a opportunity to understand what that means. So thank you guys so much for being here. The last thing I'd like to say is please get your pen and paper, but also I'd like to invite you to do is be here with me 100%. So be fully present. And I apologize, that's from my yoga and meditation side. But I'd like you to listen as if your life depended on it, because I'll tell you something, your life actually does depend on it. Your life, as you probably know, changes dramatically on every level when you are eating well or engaged in those pillars of lifestyle. And the food we eat really is important. and we'll talk about that today. And it's really connected to our body, our mind, our moods, and energy level. So let's get started. I'm just getting Microsoft Office to play nice. Okay. So just my own personal, very quickly, definitely youth who was overweight, and it continued into my 20s. And of course, I did things like smoke to try to stop eating, and not just the typical 20-year-old dietary pattern, not so great. And so, yeah, I had a lot of colds. It wasn't really well, and I was overweight. And I kind of shifted around that. What I started to do in my late 20s was I quit smoking. I changed the way I was eating to something that worked for me. And I was less moody. I had less sugar cravings. So I wasn't like coffee, sugar, coffee, sugar, coffee, sugar all day, which is a typical 20-year-old diet. And that made me less moody and kind of like improved the relationships with friends and family. And also just feeling better about living in my own body, confident, better self-esteem. So the three things I want you to just kind of a little information about today is kind of connecting how you live your lifestyle, but like particularly how you live in the way you eat and how it affects your life and how your day unfolds. Give you some tips that you can use to make things easier, and also give you some meal planning strategies because a lot of it is about meal planning. So being healthy really is a lifestyle choice. And when I say choice, I don't mean, oh, you're not choosing, you don't care. Everybody chooses or is capable of doing different things based on their circumstances. So if you have the ability to make this choice in whatever way you can, there's no one way, it's a spectrum. Eating well, in particular, is really, really important when we are stressed out or when we are busy. And so we want good energy, we want clear thinking, and we want good health. And so when we're not eating well, and I don't like the word poor diet, I almost want to scratch it out of this talk. But when we're eating well, when we are nourishing ourselves, and we all know what that looks like most of the time. And some of us don't, and that's fair. But it really affects how productive you are, if you are feeling well or not, and those energy levels that you want. So it's really hard to maintain a busy schedule, take care of your family, take care of yourself, and go about everything else that goes in your day if you're not choosing to be aware of. It's not like you have to do anything, but just open your mind to that there is lifestyle changes that can actually shift your health. And today we're talking about healthy eating. Last thing I want to leave you with is just this concept. And I find this with women, not trying to be mean, but I find that with many women, they feel that if they take care of themselves, they're being selfish, and they don't realize that that is really self-avoidance, and that if you focus on yourself and take care of yourself, you have energy and vitality and clear thinking and good health to take care of others. And that obsessively caring about others is more of a self-avoidance. So let's be clear about what that is, because part of being a caretaker or a supporter is enjoying this, but let's do this in a way that you don't deplete your resources. So we have to think about what's in our kitchen. And I am not a black and white person. I believe that there's grays in between. And so I live in both worlds here. However, I live more in the world with shockingly, the basket and all the vegetables and fruits, because I know that's what contains all the nutrients and non-specific nutrients that I need. And that the other stuff is okay, but it's 10%. And I'm never going to exclude it, but I don't want to get into the morality of food. Oh, there's good and bad. I just believe there's foods that nourish my body, and I think there's foods that are just snacks. Some people say it's crowding out as opposed to taking away, which I understand because in the diet, so we get most of our nutrition information for the diet industry, which is not invested in helping us find a way to be well, right? They just want to keep having to come back. So I like the idea of crowding out as opposed to taking away, because it's saying, you know what, I'm not gonna beat myself up because I'm, not in one or the other. I'm gonna try to integrate both of them. The other thing is, because of COVID-19, and prior to that, we have very hectic schedules. Things have shifted for many people. If you have a child, if you have a parent you're taking care of, whatever, it's shifted things. And for some, it's okay, and for some, it's not. So we do rely on takeout, junk food, and frozen food. And none of these are inherently bad, but there's other things that we could be doing to kind of fill in. So the other thing to realize too is that we are being influenced by a $1 million industry. So I said the diet industry, and that's where most of our nutrition education comes from. And they're not looking for you to lose weight in a sustainable way. The other thing is we're being influenced by a food industry, which is not a bad thing. I mean, yay, thank you for bringing me food. But a lot of what we eat has been engineered in a way, and I don't mean, I mean in like a scientific, a food scientist. So there's food scientists, and they create recipes. They're not engineering things. They're creating recipes to make things very palatable. And so as human beings, and maybe even other animals, I don't know, salt, fat, and sugar is what tastes good to us. So they make things more hyper palatable. I don't know many people, unless they have binge eating disorder, who would like eat like a bushel of apples, right? But you can get, chips or some cookies and all of a sudden be very, very interested in it. The other thing is the packaging is very misleading. So a lot of times marketing is, contains real fruit juice, which means, wow, that's a health halo. That's really good. But it also means that it's condensed sugar. Yes, there's vitamins and minerals and other things in that, but there's no fiber. So it's kind of like, yeah, so they use that, and then they play with the math. So if you look at the nutrient label, we in the United States use the imperial system. We're not using metrics unless we're in science. And so everything's in grams. Everything is as it should be, in a science term, but we're used to teaspoons, cups, quarter teaspoon. So it's hard for us to look at the nutrition label and be able to say, oh, that's what a serving size is. So Michael Pollan, I like him a lot. He is a food writer, he's a journalist, he's a professor, and he wrote this really nice book. It's got pictures and a couple of lines, so it's not like mentally overwhelming, but it's really wise. There's a lot of wisdom or silliness in some of the things he says. And he says, and it's got like pictures in it too, which I like. He says, don't eat anything your great grandmother wouldn't recognize as food. So for example, if my great grandmother was around and I showed her a Go-Gurt, yogurt kind of thing, she would not know what that was. Like, is it caulk? Like, what is that? Another example is, in 2010, Kellogg's Cocoa Krispies put out this product that their cereal was going to boost your children's immunity by 25%. And yeah, so they got sued and they had to pay a lot of money. But the fact that a person is really tired and exhausted and has 3 children and one of them has, an ear infection and sees that, they're going to buy it because they think, well, why would they lie to me, right? So you just have to think, critically when you see some of the advertisements with food. So if you don't like to cook, I understand. Not everybody enjoys that, but it really is a series of trial and errors. It's not as hard as it seems. And I know with some of the clients I've worked with, I got them to the point where they were able to do basic stuff, but they didn't want to go forward. And some wanted to like really, really super get into it. They love to cook. And so the first step, and I feel like what is really helpful for a lot of people, is that recipe ingredient service. I don't have an affiliation with them. So it could be HelloFresh, it could be Blue Apron, it could be whatever. Do your homework and look up and see. But I know that from personal experience, I have tried them. The one that I liked the most was HelloFresh because it was very simple. The one I liked the least for me was Blue Apron because it was a culinary experience. It was more of this idea of creating a dish. And I'm more of like, I want to eat in the home deliciously, and I don't want to have to, open a million containers. So that's one thing. The other thing is you have to pick your meals. So what I mentioned to most people is know what you're going to have for dinner. People can get through breakfast and lunch, but not having a plan for dinner really can set the tone for the rest of the day, because you get hangry, you have that conversation of what do you want. So when people are starting to get back into meal planning, I always say meal plan for 1 week and one dish, and make a shopping list. And we'll talk about those kinds of apps you can use, or you can actually use pen and paper, and make that time to plan. Even 15 minutes of planning can really make a large investment, a kind of like front loading of the rest of your week. So meal planning is really important. I put movement, exercise, whatever you want to call it, into my calendar, and I also put meal planning in there. The thing is that you guys all showed up here tonight. You obviously put some kind of reminder in place to remind you, although I do know other people who are able to um, have someone give them a date and a subject and they just store it in their brains. Like I know a couple people like that. That's not me. So it goes into a calendar, it goes on my phone. So some people like paper, that's fine, but it goes into my phone. I'm doing this and this, and I do it. So if an entire week seems completely overwhelming, then just do for a couple of days. Say, I'm going to make a snack for one day, I'm going to make a dinner for one day. Maybe just one day, but just try to experience it. Have an experience, take your time, don't expect perfection, just kind of experiment. And if you can cook a little extra, it makes leftovers. The other thing is, if you're comfortable with this, involve your spouse, involve your kids, involve relatives, involve roommates. It makes a big difference, because if they're living there, it's something that everybody can do together. I know some people get like territorial in the kitchen. I don't. So it has to be like based on your personality and who's around. So the way I plan when I'm going to cook is, I mean, there's so many ways. There's blogs, there's food magazines, there's TV shows. I like to take notes during these things. I ask friends, I search the internet. Have the equivalent of what used to be the recipe box. So growing up, my parents had this black box with these silver rivets in it, and you opened up and there were recipes in it. So I have a binder, and I just basically have those plastic sheets in there, and then I put recipes that I know my family's going to eat, and I put them in there. And then on the side, I put recipes. Oh, I read this on the internet, or I found something in a magazine, and I put them in the pocket. And you can go so far as putting in weekly meal plan sheets. I don't do that, but some people love to do it. And some people love to use their shopping list. And I just flip through it just the way you would through the index cards. And I find recipes and I just know what to make. I don't have to think about it. So for me, that really works. That's just a little tip. The other thing is really knowing how to food shop. I don't like food shopping on weekends. It's too people-y for me. There's definitely too many people there. I don't have the luxury always of being able to shop during the week, but I try personally, from my personality, to shop midday, and definitely with a plan, because I have gone to Costco without any plan and wound up with bleach and like Hanukkah presents and Easter stuff, and like just so know what you need, and just don't be aimlessly kind of around doing that. So it's important that you make a regular date. If you're planning to eat healthier, and if you're planning to cook inside the home, then you want a balance of having food in the fridge and also getting meals outside of the home. So again, I like to shop when there's not a lot of people there. Some people like the pen and paper and the magnet with the paper on the side of the refrigerator. That's fine. Some people like online grocery shopping. Some people like the delivery service, whatever works for you. So you have to figure out what it is. I use Amazon Alexa. She puts it on my phone. I know what's going to happen. So a lot of people ask me, well, what do you eat? And you know what I eat may not be right for you, but I wanted to answer that question because I get asked a lot. So everybody needs to eat based on what works for them. Like I love dairy. I cannot have any dairy products. It's just not going to happen. So this is typically what is in my pantry. So I will have canned beans. I will have quinoa, tomatoes, broth, nuts, seeds, olives. There's so many things here. But if you look at this from like, if you pull out and just kind of look at this and examine it, you'll go, okay, well, she could put the pasta and the sun-dried tomatoes and the olives together. And then, oh, look, there's beans there. And she could put red beans and some kind of like plant-based substitute, or there's a salmon and a turkey burger that would go really nice on a sprouted grain bread with some mustard. So again, this is my life. You having an idea of what you want to stock in your pantry and your freezer for you and your style of eating and any kind of like things that you cannot digest, that is a wonderful thing to do. So think about that. The other thing is knowing your default meals, and I brought this up when I talked about the binder. I know what our default meals are for our family, and you can see that it's chickpea soups, quinoa, it's all these different things, but your family needs to know what their default meals, and they will be different. So some of the things I do, if you are not vegan or vegetarian, is having a rotisserie chicken. And the beauty of it is you have chicken and a grain and a veggie one day. Maybe you'll shred up the chicken, put it with a salad. And then maybe on the third day, if there's anything left, depending on the family, you will have burritos and wraps. Or if there's anything left, you will have chicken and pasta. So this is a way that a lot of people I know will fill in. The other thing is when we talk about cooking, well, a lot of people say, you know what, I want to cook more. I want to shift into not relying on curbside. And what I say is one of the best things you can do is learn this technique, which is really common sense. I mean, which is really like grandma and your mom or your dad may have shown this to you, but it's mise en place, and it means putting in place, and it's a French term. And basically what it means is that you put up your recipe, right? But before you start cooking, you have everything in place. And what a lot of students do, or people when they're first starting to cook too, is they'll say, oh, I need onions, and they chop up the onions and they'll put them in the olive oil and put it on the stove. And then they're like, oh, I need to cut up peppers. And by the time they're done with the peppers, the onions are burning. So really just being able to have everything there in place is incredibly, incredibly important. And that's how they do it in restaurants. They didn't just, all of a sudden chopping things up for you. It's prep work. So it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. It's made cooking more pleasant to me, and it's made me really, really enjoy it. Other thing is, whatever you choose to do today, so whatever you get from this, whether it be nothing or one thing, is absolutely fine. But using mise en place, using that concept really helps you cook a couple of different meals at once. Because when you have everything prepared, it's like chemistry class, when we, made different compounds. It's that same idea of we set the lab up first, and then we read the experiment. So it's really the same thing. We are shifting into warmer climate, but still right now, chili, soup, stew is really, really appropriate and really easy to make in an instant pot, a slow cooker, something on the stove. So all of those things are available to you. The other thing is these meals typically will freeze well. So a lot of times what I do is I get those reused Chinese food containers from when we do takeout, and then I label it with what it is. My husband takes it to work. So it's really, really nice. And you incorporate these things in meals and incorporate them into other dishes. Batch cooking is really important. I'm not gonna sit here and say, oh, I batch cook every weekend, but I would say at least once to twice a month. On Sundays, I'll make large quantities of something in particular, and then I'll store it for later use in the freezer in a container. So for me and my schedule, usually Sunday will work. Everybody's working different schedules. And I will try to find things that will freeze well and I can kind of double it up. So maybe it's brown rice, maybe it's sauteing a bunch or chopping up a bunch of red peppers and green peppers. So it's kind of depending on what I'm feeling like doing. And then building into leftovers, just kind of having this idea that there's a protein, a fat, and a fiber, and building around that. And that's been really, really helpful. So you can cook a large pot of brown rice. Typically in a refrigerator, it's going to last about 5 days. You were still kind of like cold, so you can still get away with roasting root vegetables, those sweet potatoes, or carrots, parsnips, Brussels sprouts. We're getting into salad season, so this is a beautiful time to go to farmers markets, to go to supermarkets, whatever, and just get really nice leafy greens and a beautiful rainbow of a salad, and just store it in your fridge and eat a little bit every day. Bean salads, if that's something that you enjoy. And then what you do as far as like creating that prep work, again, that mise en place, that putting in place, having that broccoli and the cauliflower and the peppers, mushrooms, whatever you enjoy. You don't have to eat things you don't like, but whatever vegetables that you like. And they're so amazing because you use them in stir fries, you roast them, you saute, you put them in frittatas, you steam them. The other thing you can consider is that breakfast, lunch, and snacks can be prepared beforehand. So if you're like, I want to kind of shift, what I usually tell people, if they're like, I want to shift into healthier eating, I'm like, and you don't want to get overwhelmed, start with your snacks or maybe start with breakfast. So cooking a large batch of steel cut oats, you can reheat it in the morning. A frittata. I sent out a recipe. I don't know if you guys have got it. I can put my email in there, or you can talk to the library coordinator and they will definitely get back to you. But there should be some recipes for bean dips and hummus, vegetables, hard-boiled eggs, if you eat any type of animal products. Edamame, a lot of people don't realize that like soy in particular actually has all the essential amino acids and is a complete protein. So edamame is an example of that. And it is available salted, unsalted, and frozen, and it's just a really nice plant-based snack. Just for dinner, I've been desperate with that, where I'm just like, you know what, we're having omelets, we're having eggs. You can have oatmeal. It's all about balance. It's saying, you know what, we're going to have eggs, but we're going to add greens and we're going to add some color. Let's get some of those potatoes there. Or, you know, going into the frozen food or the can section in your own home and pulling out things to make it balanced. But breakfast is fine for dinner. So that's something we do when things get really, really hairy. Takeout is an absolutely wonderful thing to do. It's just how do you do it? So again, if you are a meat eater, rotisserie chicken with a green salad or other vegetable, again, about balance. You want to go for Chinese. All Chinese food is absolutely amazing, but most of the time there's a lot of oil put in. So what I ask for is it to be steamed, or I get brown rice, or I ask for extra vegetables just to kind of balance everything out. Takeout, we have so many health food stores. Japanese has beautiful food. So it's sushi with brown rice or sushi and cucumber. You can actually get that. I forgot the name of it, but a lot of people don't realize they can have sushi and they keep the seafood, the brown roll, and then they put cucumber over it. So they're keeping the nori, so to speak. And then Italian, And then there's even Greek. And then we have a lot of Middle Eastern food that's coming out. Like we have hummus where I live, and it's absolutely wonderful. So there's a lot of takeout. What I do is I take the menu and I write and highlight the things that I know are delicious and satisfying, but a better choice. That way I don't have to think about it. Healthy snacks is really the way to go. So if you're trying to shift into eating better for you, your children, whatever, yourself, your family, a friend, it's really important to have healthy snacks, because what happens is, especially because we're seated so much, if we have that luxury of staying home, or even if we're going out into the work fields, we use snacks to kind of soothe ourselves because we're going through a challenging time. So getting something that has protein, fat, and carbohydrates. So that could be, depending on whatever your food tolerances are, that could be a nut butter or a almond butter sandwich, or it could be nuts and seeds, or it could be hummus, guacamole, crackers. It could be yogurt with blueberries and granola. But vegetables, like all kinds of pre-cut, prepared for you, carrots and celery. You have to pick one or two that you like, and that's an amazing, amazing way to supplement your snacks. But you want to make sure it's protein, fat, and fiber. So if you were looking at this point and saying, I want to shift into eating healthier for myself, my family, my friends, then what I suggest is that you just make sure that you looked at your paper and decided, what's the most important thing here? And choose one thing. So maybe you wrote one thing down or two things down. Decide what is going to be your priority, and then be patient with yourself, because when we start to shift out of habits into other types of changes, sometimes there's resistance, or it's harder, or we're not ready for it. So just get settled with the idea of the change, and then understand that it takes some time, but as you go along, the more you create change, the more you can add on. So establish a particular really super easy lifestyle change, and then add on to it. Don't start out with something that's like super hard. The other thing is if you have people in your life that are supportive and will support you, friends, family, coworkers, ask for their help if you feel comfortable with that, and enjoy yourself. You know, cooking and gardening, or whatever it is that you want to do that's lifestyle related, is enjoyable. And not everybody loves it, but there's something very human about gathering over a meal. So it's okay to enjoy food. It's okay to find it to be satisfying and rewarding. And then just feel proud. There's nothing wrong with pride. Wanting to share that with others, that you're taking care of yourself and your family so that you can live that long and healthy life, because that's really, really important. What I want to leave you with this is just a concept. It almost reminds me of a business concept, but this is the law of diminishing intent. And really what it means is that the longer that you wait to do something, you should do now. So the greater the odds that longer that you put this off, the greater the odds that you will never actually do it. So an example is, I might get up tomorrow and decide that I'm going to go for a 3-mile walk, take my dogs out, first get my son off to school and everything. And then, okay, let me just check email first. And what happens is I all of a sudden will get sucked into work vortex, come back and realize it's 12 p.m. and I have not gone for a walk. So if there was anything that intrigued you, you were interested in reading about, going to the library and researching and getting more information from, please implement it as soon as possible, because that's just human nature. It happens to everybody. So I appreciate all of you for being here. I appreciate the library for allowing me to present. If you have questions, please, you're welcome to use my number or send me an email, or send Sarah an email, would probably be awesome as well. I am going to, excuse me, I'm going to stop sharing and see if anybody has a chat. or anything they want to share. If not, no worries. I know that a lot of us are just getting really zoomed out at the end of the day, and I get that. If nobody has any questions, just want to make sure everybody got the handout. If you didn't, I could put an email in the chat box as long as it's okay with the library. If not, no worries. You know how to get in contact. And thank you so much for being here. Again, I'm really happy to open up to chat. Okay. So healthy drink suggestions. I will say the best thing you can drink is water. When your plant is thirsty, what do you give it? Water. So without knowing anything about you, without knowing anything, your medical background, why you're asking the question, I encourage people just to drink water. Whether it's in the form of seltzer or whatever. And you know what? If there's like, everybody's like medical history is different, but water is the best thing you can do. And if you're wondering why and how much, what I would say is take your weight and divide it in half and turn that into ounces. So let's just say I am 100 pounds, which I'm not. I would drink 50 ounces, but that can change depending on you go for a 3-mile run, or you ate a lot of pastrami for St. Patrick's Day, and now you know that you had a lot of salt. So I always tell people, just use common sense. You know, this sounds gross, but look at your urine output, and if it's deeply yellow, that tells you need more water. So I hope that helped answer your question. If anybody else has other questions, I'm happy to answer them. It doesn't have to be related